This is Tim Albright with AVNation with an AVNation special, taking a look at the SCN Hall of Fame class of 2021. And with me, it is my very good pleasure to welcome Joe Pham, President and CEO of QSC. Welcome, sir.
Hi, Tim. Good to be with you today. Thanks for
good to see you
on.
As always. Absolutely. Friggin', I love talking to you. And we're going to get onto some of those things. And there are a couple of things that you have done over the last few years. And one of the things that folks have, and when we talk about this Hall of Fame, is how we got here. So first and foremost, congratulations on making it and being selected into the SCN Hall of Fame. A lot of distinguished folks. A couple of them still work for QSC. I'll point that out. So you've got a good roster there. And one of the things that I find fascinating is just to simply ask people the question: how did you get into AV?
Yeah. Well, before we even go there, I just want to thank you for the selection. It's a tremendous honor. I love AV, and I think we'll get into all the reasons why. But for someone that grew up loving audio and technologies to sort of have this be part of my career, it's tremendously exciting. It's really fun. To answer your question, I got into AV because I love music. Right? I started playing guitar as a kid, played in high school bands, thought I wanted to be a front of house engineer, but then actually found my way to UCLA and did that thing, and then did the business thing at McKinsey. And then really, it was the point of McKinsey where I wanted to get back into the industry. So I resigned from McKinsey and found my way to the NAMM show. I had a list of all the CEOs in Southern California. Fortunately, met Barry Andrews, and then that started a series of conversations. And I joined QSC a few months after that NAMM show meeting. So it was really just a way for me to get back to what I love, which is music and technology and everything sort of AV related.
So talk for a second about this, because you are, you are a musical CEO, but you're also a business CEO, and that's one of the things that I think people sometimes miss here, is that you are not a founder, right? Like some folks in the industry, but you've come along and you've actually added quite a bit of business sense to the industry, where yes, we're still, we are a maturing industry, but there is a lot of places in our industry where we're still young. I have a buddy that refers to it still as the wild, wild west. And there are certainly times and places where I see that. But there are folks like yourself who have grown up in the business side, right? Yes. Talk for a second about what you were able to bring from McKinsey into, from a business standpoint and kind of forecasting and vision casting standpoint into QSC.
Yeah, when I joined QSC, it was a phenomenal organization, right? The founders started the company in 1968. They went through all that entrepreneurial greatness of building a company, a brand, a culture, all of that. And, QSC has always been on a growth trajectory. And, when I joined in QSC in 2004, I was just able to contribute with the founders to chart out the next path of growth for QSC. And it's been an incredible journey. And, so we brought in, just with the McKinsey background, even though all the business fundamentals were there, I just brought in a little bit more perhaps different ways of looking at strategic planning, looking at business planning, looking at the industry and the environment. So these were all things that all companies do, and to grow, from 68 to when I joined at QSC obviously did it well. It was just an opportunity for me to join and bring perhaps new experiences to the executive table with the founders. And it's been incredible. It was really, really enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I would be remiss without talking about is your involvement in the industry and giving back, and as far as leadership as well with the organizations such as Avixa. You spent 6 years on the board. You were the past chair. I think we were talking earlier. This is the last couple of weeks as we're recording this at the end of 2020. Why is it important to give back in the way of volunteering, in leadership, and volunteering in AVIXA or other other trade organizations?
Yeah, well, before I even get to important, I'll just tell you why it's easy.
Okay.
Is it just goes back to just loving the industry, the technology, the people, right? So it was easy for me to want to get involved in VIXA and donate my time with the VIXA. It's an incredible organization. It was a great, it has been a great opportunity for me to be involved. I think the important side of your equation, of your question, is our industry needs to advance, right? And I always describe our industry as this 100-year-old industry, where roughly 100 years ago, the need to be seen and need to be heard became more and more important. We started with PA systems, and we actually, as a sidetrack, at QSC with the founders, we charted out the 100-year history of the industry. And so I have, I'm familiar with some of the key milestones of our industry's history. But yet, when you look beyond, outside of our industry, in many ways, we're still way behind other industries. We are a technology industry. There's no doubt about it, right? You can just see that the technologies that have emerged over the last 10, 20, 30 years in our industry. But yet, when we take a broader view of the technology world out there and the various other technology industries out there, we're way behind. We're way behind. So it was important for me to join AVIXA just to be part of that conversation on how the industry will evolve, how the industry should evolve, how do we continue to support our members in AVIXA, but how do we make sure that we're a forward-looking organization so that this is an industry, the industry that we all love to be a part of, can thrive for the long time. So it was both from an easy to do but important thing for me to try to contribute to. And then in return, I mean, we're talking about, me contributing, but in all honesty, in return, I've gotten as much, if not more, out of AVIXA than I've given to AVIXA. So just being a part of that group and being being privileged to that conversation and really looking at the industry has just made me a better executive at QSC.
Well, you said that we are still behind. Why do you think that is, and how do we get? I'm not going to say ahead, but how do we at least catch up?
Why do I think it is, or
Yes.
Yeah,
Why do you think that is? And then how do we at least get caught up?
Yeah, well, it's not. I wouldn't say it's surprising, and I'm not familiar with I'm not familiar with the many other industries beyond AV, but I would imagine many industries are behind when it comes to the technology, right? So with technology that really is really innovative technology and is that has sort of mass adoption above across the planet. We've got our high-tech innovative companies, and you can name them, right? You can Google and on and on and on, right? And AV is a company that grew up focused on A and V, and we design all the technologies to serve A and V. But it's at a point now where the broader technology adoption is so pervasive that for us not to push not to go in that direction, we'll be an industry that's left behind. Yeah. So one, it's not surprising, and I'm kind of speaking a little vague, but like one clear thing is hardware versus software, right? I mean, when we talk about the 100-year industry of this industry, it's 98% of that history is a hardware-based industry, right? And we still see it today through everything. When we take a peek out of the industry in terms of the products that are there, the conversation that it's there, the business models that are there today, we're all developed and grown up in a hardware-based industry. But when you look at your own life, my own life, in the technology world, software is the dominant IP. Software is the dominant IP. And so our industry shouldn't be any different. In fact, I think some of the more innovative companies in our industry have already made these very significant leaps in terms of bringing software to the portfolio, bringing the magic that software can bring to our products. And so we're just going to see more and more of that. But I just think what will hold us back is any of the long-term rear view thinking in terms of what the industry is, because I do think we're at that 5-10 year period where this industry, being a 100-year industry in hardware, will make a significant shift into software and other technologies. That we don't see so much in our AV industry.
That actually ties into the presentation that you did a couple of years ago, about a year and a half ago. And I would say, unfortunately, the last time that us in the U.S. got together as an industry, InfoComm 2019, at least in person, right? We've all had several virtual events. But the last time that we were all in person in Orlando, you did a presentation, and not only, some people in the press called it bold, innovative, inspiring. It really kind of came down to this: is you were challenging the industry to stop thinking about the hardware. In essence, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. But you made references to Endgame, to Avengers Endgame. You made references to Game of Thrones, but really, kind of that really those two movies and the way you were leveraging that was seeing, how different sides of a conflict were able to leverage their strengths, and you were encouraging the industry to leverage our strengths and to look beyond selling just the boxes. Right. Talk for a second about that presentation, but also how QSC has helped at least, put fuel to what you were talking about and actually moving in that direction.
Yeah, and it's with the presentation, I really enjoyed it. So
I could tell.
I really enjoyed it, and whether people thought it was bold or crazy or provocative or whatever, right? If it made members of the audience just think a little bit about our industry, then it was successful in that regards. But it's sort of like what I was just mentioning. What I was just mentioning now, actually, the industry. We developed business models. Well, one phase of our industry. Let me just go back a little bit. I don't take too long here. But one phase of our industry was the creation of incredible businesses in select product categories. Okay, so I'm going way back to QSC and amplifiers, and EAW and loudspeakers, and Greg Mackey came out with mixers, and you can go on and on with different video categories beyond the audio. So that was the 70s and 80s in our industry, where it evolved to product categories because there was so much innovation that could happen in each product category, and we saw great brands emerge out of our industry. Well, once that innovation was mostly tapped, then the next level of integration was the integration of all of these product categories. But in this process, our industry, when you look at our channel and when you look at a lot of people who make a living in our industry, they built business models taking all these products and putting them together and making them work as a great system, right? Yeah. That's what they deliver to the end user. But the technology has advanced so much that the technology is doing so much of that today. So part of the message I was trying to get across with the InfoComm presentation is we all have to relook at our business model and really challenge our thinking on where do I add value to the customer, right? To the end customer who is everybody's customer. right? And if as an example, if you add value and you've built your company around taking a bunch of different products and putting them together to make it work for the customer, well, that is a really diminishing value today and in the coming years. So it was really a challenge to rethink business models. And so when you go down this line of thinking about how do you rethink business models and where do you really add value, like human capital, intellectual capital value, right? Then you're going to want to leverage all that the technology has to offer and not duplicate what technology is already doing today. If you go down that path, you're seeing software bring the world together. First it was hard codecs, soft codecs, and there's a lot of things that we can cite in our AV industry with this trend. But if you look beyond the AV industry, they were talking about this 15, 20 years ago, right? Software eating the world was that famous paper that came out. Just being with QSC and just being, having the privilege of working with the founders and so many great executives who are always looking ahead, we saw this trend, right? We saw this trend well over a decade ago, right? We saw this trend 15 years ago. And so being a company that's always committed to growth and innovation and thriving, we started investing heavily in this direction, right? And so, our main technology platform today is QSYS. It is a software-based audio video control platform. And it was designed to be a software-based audio, video, and control platform from the very first line of code. Right. I mean, so when it was launched, being an audio company, it came out more as an audio processor, but we've always had designed the platform to extend to audio video control on a soft level, on a software level. So it's, hopefully I answered a bit of your question, but it was sort of looking at the industry, challenging the business models, really questioning what value are we adding today. And the thesis is the value that we need to add today and in the coming decades is very different than the value that our peers and our industry was adding over the last decade or two.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get into QSYS for a second because that is kind of the keystone of this move. A couple of pieces here. One is the fact that QSYS can run on a Dell server.
Yeah.
And that was unique at the time that you guys released it.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I can't think, but maybe one other platform that does that, that can do that. Why is it important and to utilize and leverage existing software, existing computer, existing technology platforms for the AV industry, because it does fly in the face of your competitors. It does go against the grain of dedicated pieces of hardware. I'll also bring in the fact that your programming language is you guys utilize Lua, which is a software, a computer software code already. Why is that important to go down the vein of the mainstream computer industry or software industry?
Yeah. There's a couple of main points there, right? And a couple of reasons why. One is it gets back to our conversation that the premise that our technology is behind the rest of the world, okay? Then if you believe in that premise, you would want to leverage the technology outside of AV. And if you look at the amount of billions of dollars of research and development that gets poured there, right? Intel's got one of the biggest R&D budgets on the planet, right? And then you start tracking Intel processing and the power, you get this incredible scale and leverage effect from the technology world that's outside of AV. So then you conclude, why wouldn't I want to benefit from that? Right? Why wouldn't I want to? QSC our R&D budget is limited, right? There's only so much that we can spend in design and development. So why wouldn't we want to leverage all of that money and innovation that's happening outside of AV to bring that to the AV industry and deliver that to the customer, right? And so that's one of the fundamental technical backbone of the QSys platform. And like you mentioned, the Dell server, so there's two parts to my answer. So the first part is why we would do that. The second part is why our industry should adopt it. Okay, and that to me is going to be well, if you give me a long enough horizon, I'm going to say, of course, we're going to adopt it. Okay, but the industry has a lot of inertia.
Yeah.
Right? The industry has a lot of inertia, and that comes from the quote unquote manufacturers. I'm putting quotes in our video chat because I don't really like that word. And it comes from the channel. There's a lot of inertia, and so it's hard to move the inertia. And so when our industry will choose to adopt it, and the customers that are deploying AV technology will choose to adopt it when they do. And so even getting back to the Dell thing, the Dell situation, if customers want to sort of take that paradigm into their enterprises today, great, right? We can serve them. If customers don't, we can serve them in a different hardware paradigm, right?
Yeah.
Our own hardware design boxes. But the important thing, so when the announcement of the Dell server, QSys running on the Dell server came out, obviously it was very exciting. And one of the most exciting things to me is it was basically proof that QSys is a software-based platform, because I can say it 100 times and I can show you the PowerPoints on why it's a software-based platform, but here is proof, right? It's an off-the-shelf server, and we're delivering our QSys platform in a software format onto it. We didn't design any of that hardware, right? So that was a really great technical milestone for our team. I'm very proud of them.
Absolutely. As we wrap up here, one of the things that I always like to ask folks in your position is look ahead, and where do we see the industry? And I've stopped because of COVID asking people 5 years. I have no clue where I'm going to be in 5 minutes, right? Let alone 5 minutes. But let's take a gamble and let's say a year, right, or a year and a half, and by the time this posts, it will be 2021, and I'm assuming that the world didn't collapse at the end of the new year. Where do we see our industry as a whole, right? And this includes, the unfortunate folks that have been impacted from the live staging, obviously, integration, depending on the vertical that you're in. But where do you see the industry as a whole in a year, maybe a year and a half, by mid 22?
Yeah. By what time frame, Tim?
Mid 20, like beginning of 22, mid 22.
Oh, I think we'll be very healthy.
Okay.
I think we'll be very healthy. I think there are two. So if you 2020 was the shock year.
Yeah.
2021, and this is anybody's guess. You're asking me for my guess. I'm going to give you my guess, right? 2020 was the shock year. 2021 is the transition year. And by 2022, I think we'll be in good shape, great shape as an industry. And sort of two things come to mind. If you look at, you mentioned live sound, okay? You mentioned live sound. So let's very rudimentarily just look at two key sections of our industry. One is the live sound performance-oriented live events sort of side, and the other is more of the collaboration side that you see in enterprises, in higher education, and lots of companies and institutions. Okay, so on the live event side, man, we all miss connecting, right? I mean, that's how I first fell in love with this industry, right? I wanted to be a front of house engineer. We all miss that connection. the connection of being the audience, the connection from performer to audience, the connection of playing in bands, that is, because none of us have had it in 2020, right? In 2021, it's going to be transition. I don't know how much of it we're going to get it, but by 2022, I have confidence that we'll be in great shape, and we're all going to have this latent demand to go to entertainment and venues and concerts, and it's going to be great, right? It's going to be not only great for the industry, but fun for us as consumers and fun for us as fans in the audience. And then on the collaboration side of, and I use the word collaboration broadly, just like we're collaborating right now, right?
Yeah.
What strikes me is the shock of 2020 going into 21. It's brought us apart physically, right? But yet we are all adopting all the technologies that are bringing us closer virtually, and a lot of us closer virtually. Okay. Because one example, when you look into QSC or when you look into any of these other companies, it's a lot easier for me to get my team in India on the screen, my team in Germany on the screen, right? So all of all these global enterprises, it's actually a lot easier to connect with everyone. We've all learned how to use Zoom, right? We're on Zoom right now, right? We've all learned how to use Zoom. We all learned how to use Teams. And so it's really fascinating that while we're more physically apart, we are closer together now than I feel closer to some of my global teams than I've ever felt, right? Because, prior to this, it was I would make my trips around the world and visit offices around the world, but you can't do that nearly as well as just getting on a Zoom call with your entire team. And so the value that we're getting today with this technology, we're going to, we're not going to drop it in 2021. We're not going to drop it in 22. So it all comes back to then your question. I think we've got a very healthy industry in the years ahead, both in terms of the real life physical connection that we make in live events and performance, as well as in the more professional collaborative environments that we find ourselves in. I think they're both going to boom. I like to say I'm long on both of them.
Okay, very good. That's it. And for those of you who invest, you know exactly what that means. Basically, he's in it for the long haul, folks. I know. All right. I appreciate your time, Joe Pham. Again, congratulations on making the SCN Hall of Fame class of 2021. If somebody wants to connect with you or QSC, how do they do that?
Yeah, well, so my email is just joe.pham@qsc.com. It's the easiest way to get in touch with me. QSC, lots of different ways to get in touch with QSC. Right, you go to qsc.com, for example.
Let's start there. Absolutely.
Start there. Yes.
For us, for AVNation, go by our website, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. Find this program and a host of others, including our 2 weeklies. One is called Resi Week, looks at the residential side, and the other is AV Week, looks at the commercial side of the AV industry. All that and more at AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv.